When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Join me and follow the podcast Conspiracy Theories, where we explore what's really going on behind the official narrative. Like, what if the Loch Ness Monster isn't a monster at all, but an elephant? What do the richest 1% know that we don't? And why are they building all those bunkers? And really, what the heck is going on with the Denver airport? Join me every week to see just how high up this goes on the Spotify podcast Conspiracy Theories. Listen on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
He proceeded to grab both of my wrists and drag me away. I have never felt such panic.
The lift stops after what feels like an eternity. I was fully expecting a shopping mall when the lift doors open, but that was not the case.
She's baring her teeth at this point, and I'm internally screaming that I want this ride over ASAP.
From killer podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events, this is Disturbed. Hello and welcome back to the show. This week we're bringing you 4 chilling encounters from the r/Let's Not Meet subreddit. Stories that will make you question just how well you really know the people around you. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First, a story narrated by Danny Boyle, from Reddit user Rosalera. My landlord knew what items I had in my bedroom. I never met my landlord in person.
When I was 18, I was desperate to find a place to stay for university. There is a massive housing shortage where I live, so I went on Facebook to find a room. Eventually, a man from Egypt DM'd me saying that he had a private room available. He told me that he moved back to Egypt due to some kind of illness and had been renting out his 3-bedroom house. He had no profile picture or any info on his profile other than his name, but he sent me the address and his son ended up giving me a house tour. Everything seemed nice enough. 3 students were living there at the time, so I asked why they were leaving. They told me that the landlord is a weird guy, but I didn't think anything of it and decided to sign the contract. I was paired up with 2 roommates who were also students, and I didn't see his son after that. Once I moved in, my landlord got my phone number on WhatsApp and messaged me, saying that he wanted to build a friendship with me. Weird, I know. I said I was too busy with school, but that didn't do anything to dissuade him. He said he was lonely and needed company. I ignored most of the calls and tried not to worry about it. He wasn't in the country and I was locked into this lease, so I thought I could just ignore him, pay the rent, and I'd be fine. I was wrong. About a month after I moved into the house, his messages became stranger. I got one that said, "I notice you have a heater and an air fryer on your table. Could you please not use those?" And then another that was like, "Why do you own 2 laptops? That's kind of strange." This man claimed he lived in Egypt, and I had never seen him in person, and my windows were all shut and locked. How did he know what was in my room? Not just our common spaces like the kitchen, but the stuff that was in my room. I started freaking out, and it only got worse from there. He sent multiple other messages commenting on the kinds of objects in my room or how I organized my room. And then he tried to charge 150 euros more on the rent just for using my air fryer too much. How do you know what I'm doing, and why do you care? My roommates were pretty chill up to this point, so I was hesitant to accuse them of anything. But eventually I had to confront them. They were the only people who would have access to my room. They said they hadn't received any messages from the landlord and denied talking to him about my stuff. I didn't believe them, so I made them show me their WhatsApp, and there were no messages other than "rent has been paid." I even checked their keys, and neither of them could open my door. I didn't really know what else to do, so I decided to test the landlord. I placed specific objects on the table in my room to see if he would say anything, making sure my door was locked and the curtains were drawn. It didn't take long for him to send a message. I saw the text in the middle of class, and I had to do my best not to melt down in front of everyone. Then, 2 days later, after ignoring all the comments about the objects I placed, I got several calls from unknown phone numbers. I only answered twice, and the voice vaguely sounded like the landlord. The second time, the voice told me to come home. And when I got home that day, the trash I had thrown out earlier was all over the front door to my private room. This went on for almost a year, until I was able to find another place and leave the lease. I filed a restriction order against this Egyptian landlord, and luckily I haven't heard from him since. I still have absolutely no idea how he knew what objects I had in my private room, or how that trash ended up in front of my door. One of my friends thinks there were hidden cameras, but another thinks a roommate was spying on me. But again, I don't really know.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com.
This is an announcement to all United States vehicle owners who own a 2003 or newer vehicle with a manufacturer's warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all. With the struggling economy and the cost of living on the rise, Endurance is now offering an affordable low-cost vehicle coverage plan to the general public. As of today, you could be one of millions of drivers that now may qualify to have your vehicle protected under this coverage and have all future covered auto repairs paid directly to the repair shop for you. You pick your plan, you pick your deductible, you even pick the repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental coverage is included. To all United States vehicle owners who own a 2003 or newer vehicle with a manufacturer's warranty about to expire, get your vehicle protected now and save your wallet from costly vehicle repairs. For your free 5-minute quote and to see if you qualify, visit EnduranceWarranty.com. EnduranceWarranty.com.
This is Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm Steve Taylor, your host to a horror anthology podcast with carefully curated original tales of terror each week. Our deepest rooted fears are brought to the forefront by a diverse cast of voice talent and masterfully eerie sound design. Make sure to check out Chilling Tales for Dark Nights wherever you get your podcasts. To subscribe now to always be the first to enjoy the horror show.
Our next story is told by Dan Groh about a routine rideshare shift that turned into a terrifying encounter.
So, for context, I'm a 29-year-old trans woman who presents as masculine for work-related things like rideshare. Basically, this means I don't generally get tilted by people calling me he, him because, well, I don't pass. Anyway, I use both apps, Uber and Lyft, and your girl usually doesn't have any problems. The riders are generally pretty nice and/or quiet, and honestly, I enjoy giving rides. Not a lot of money, but enough in between paychecks and my big girl job to be enjoyable to do when I can. However, as I was cruising off from this one ride, I got a new request for like $20, $30. Not uncommon, but sometimes that means it's far as shit. This one was only 45 minutes, so not too bad. So I'm driving to the pickup pin, and it's at a decently fancy Japanese grill and a kinda rundown dispensary. I park out of the way of traffic and hit arrive. I'm sitting there for 3 minutes until a woman finally walks up to the car. Here's where the scary shit starts. She doesn't immediately open the door. She reaches for the handle, sure, but she then proceeds to lean completely forward against my rear passenger door and laugh. She's laughing into the paint. Then, she bends all the way backwards to the point her legs are almost 45 degrees with her torso. She opens the door, and apparently my last rider left something in the back seat. She stops laughing and starts snickering. I hit her with the, "Hi, are you Donna?" in my forced masculine voice. In a creepily cutesy tone, she says, "Yeah, someone done dropped a thing in your back seat, Mr. Uberman." I notice and ask to keep it in the front seat with me so I can return it later. "Oh, damn. Guess she must have left it on accident." She stares at me through the rearview mirror and says, "Ain't you gonna call her?" I tell her I'll do it when a request comes in to return it like I usually do. Now, quick aside to explain the characterization of this woman I've made so far. I'm not going out of my way to be any kind of prejudice. She legitimately spoke this way. Anyway, we head off towards her destination about 45 minutes away, and she's sitting directly behind me. None of this so far was a direct red flag, because sometimes people are just weird or drunk. What first raised the alarm was when she asked me to stop at a UPS store on our way to her destination. No biggie, right? Here's the issue. She didn't specify where, just the UPS. As I opened up Google Maps to find the nearest one, she says, "Oh, you don't have to. But I have to get my friend out of jail. If I don't get this package, he gonna be there overnight, I don't get what the package had to do with jail, but I just played along. "Well, it's just he gonna be there all night if we don't get him out, and he gonna kill somebody. He in jail for killing, What the fuck? She notices me starting to freak out and says with a smile, "Oh, we don't have to go there. Let's keep going back on the road. I know you Uber guys gotta make y'all money." "Yeah, Uber drivers don't get a lot of money, do they?" Weird pivot, but we keep going, and I nervous laugh and say, "Yeah, but I don't mind if you need me to stop." Wrong move. She continues to stare at me from the rear view every time I glance back. We're on the highway before she says anything. I like this car. What car this be? I tell her. Ooh, it's nice. You like it? You like this car? I nod and say, oh, yep, it's a nice car. Then she turns to the empty seat next to her and starts arguing with the air. No, it's his car. No, I don't think he wants to do that. Stop it. I say, everything okay? Oh, my friend just say this car is nice. All I say is, oh. I'm a bit freaked out, but it's whatever. People are weird. Then she goes, Mr. Uberman, do you think it's okay to steal if you have to? I just shrug and go, I mean, what do you mean? Like, if I was in a grocery store and wanted bread, I should be able to take it, right? Especially if I work there. I shrug again. She turns around and shouts, I ain't no thief. It's 'cause I needs it. Towards the trunk, before turning back to me. I got money, right, Mr. Uberman? I got a job, so I got money. She's getting visually more agitated. Then she turns back to the trunk and says, What? No, you tell her to simmer down now. He's a nice man. And goes on this long rant about how she's not a vagabond and she's got a job, so she ain't poor, but that poor people like to pretend they're not poor. All the while turning back and forth from the trunk to the empty seat next to her. Eventually, she smirks, and it's kind of off-putting because she's missing teeth. At this point, her imaginary friends sounded like they wanted to attack and rob me. I continue driving, keeping to myself, and I see her smirk in the rear view. In a new, upsettingly soft tone, she says, Aren't you sleepy? Are you hungry, honey? They say you're real sleepy. Do you like boba? I'm now gripping the steering wheel and avoiding eye contact. Oh, no, I'm okay. Thank you for the offer, though. I'll pay if we stop. Switching back to her sing-song voice from earlier, she says, Let's stop. Maybe you could even pull over and nap for a bit. She's baring her teeth at this point, and I'm internally screaming that I want this ride over ASAP. But $20 is $20. So we keep driving. Well, you killed her, so it is what it is, she says randomly to the trunk. This lets me piece together that she's talking to dead people. So now I'm definitely not stopping. When we get to a stop sign, she stares at my headrest and leans forward before sticking out her bony finger to poke on my shoulder. How does your body feel, Mr. Uberman? Huh? You sure you don't want something to eat? I could feed you if you just pull over somewhere. That's like the 10th time she's tried to get me to stop. Then she says, "He's sleepy, ain't he? He gon' kill someone if he don't get some sleep. Someone gonna die. He got 2 choices. He choose." I ask, "Or who is going to kill someone?" She looks aware and gets an angry face. "Nothing, no one." So, eventually, after being death stared at and her imaginary ghost friends talking about robbing and or killing me, we get to her destination and she gets out. "Oh, thank you for being so patient. Make sure you don't forget to eat," she says with deliberate pauses. And then she comes around to my window and smiles against the glass. I drove straight home and haven't driven Uber again for a week.
Our next story is from Reddit user Major_School 2026 and is narrated by Terra Ashe. Titled simply, Followed.
So when I was 19 in my second year of college, I lived in a small city, if you can even call it that really. Due to some other stuff that was going on at the time that I won't get into, I often went on walks to help with my mental health. I know a lone person should never walk by themselves at night, especially a girl, but again, it was a small city, if you can even call it that. So whilst on this walk, a man approached me. At first, he was just trying his luck, so to speak, asking for my phone number and all that. I politely declined, but he started becoming more and more aggressive, trying to force me to give him information. Where I lived, what times I walk alone, how easily he could just follow me. At this point, I became really quite scared and essentially told him to go away and leave me alone. He reached out in an attempt to snatch my phone, but I pulled it away in time. He said, "You're coming with me," and proceeded to grab both of my wrists and drag me away. I have never felt such panic. He was a big guy, over 6 feet, so I was no match for his strength. By the grace of something, there was a bar nearby, and people saw this happen and came over to intervene. I was relieved beyond belief, but I took the long way home in order to prevent him from following me. I wish I could say that's where it ended. I didn't think he had followed me or watched me, but he quite clearly had. A few weeks later, a black car parked outside my address at about midnight. I could tell there was someone in the car, but the person was hard to make out. He sat there for hours, coming out on occasion to do what I can only describe as lurking around my address. I told my housemates about the situation and pointed out the car, but no, we didn't call the police at the time. I know. So stupid of us. Then another day, when none of us were home, he apparently tried to break in. A neighbor caught him looking for an opening in windows and trying all the door handles. They even saw him trying to get into my bedroom, which was on the first floor. The neighbors called the cops, but I guess nothing came of it. On a different night, my roommates and I were sitting in the kitchen drinking cheap booze as college students do. While we were chatting, we saw the exact man that had approached me on the street those weeks ago jump our back wall, which was very tall, may I add, and land in our garden. He ran forwards and then just stared through our window at us. This man had a look in his eye I'd never seen before. Pure evil. He wasn't even alarmed that we were looking at him. We immediately called the police, and he finally got caught and arrested after trying to run off from them. What happened sends chills down my spine to this day. We later learned from the police that he had had a knife on him. What were his plans? What was he going to do? I will never know, and I'm glad I never will. If there's a lesson here for any other girls out there, make sure you have a guy with you if you decide to do any late-night strolls. Trust me, the safety is worth it.
Hi, I'm Alicia.
And I'm Stacy.
And we make Trashy Divorces, everybody's favorite good podcast about bad relationships.
Looking for something true crimey without the gore or the body count?
We've been churning out funny, feisty, feminist episodes since 2019. So if you're looking to put some scandalous stories told well into your ears this summer, check out Trashy Divorces, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Trust us, we've covered someone you love.
Or someone you love to hate.
Welcome back. Our final story is narrated by Hannah Robertson. It started as a simple question in a quiet department store, but what waited at the top of the elevator was anything but ordinary.
This happened 2 days ago, and I'm still very shaken up about it. My dad, brother, and I were headed home from the immigration department in Hong Kong. We had some issue with our visa and we had to get it sorted out. On our way back to the apartment we were staying in, we all started to get a little hungry, and I had to use the toilet. Eventually, my brother saw the golden arches from the bus window, and we all agreed to get off and head over to McDonald's for dinner. Big mistake. We went in, and I couldn't find a bathroom downstairs. I thought it must just be upstairs, so my family waited for me as I headed to the second floor to find it. I looked everywhere, pacing all around because I desperately needed to pee. A McDonald's worker up there was watching all this happen as he was lining a bin. He was skinny, around 5'6", with a lazy eye, and I couldn't exactly tell his expression because he was wearing a COVID mask. Eventually, he stopped and just stared at me as if he was waiting for me to ask for help. I thought he was just being an attentive employee, but I hate bothering people, so I pretended I didn't notice. I kept walking around the second floor for a bit until I realised I was never going to find it. I asked him, "Hi, is there a toilet here?" He looked at me for a bit, sort of dazed. I thought maybe my Cantonese was bad and he didn't understand that well. A few seconds later, he finally repeated, "Toilet." I repeated again, "Yes, toilet. Is there one here?" He continued looking at me for a moment. At the time, I thought he was just very tired and was having a few delayed reactions, but looking back on it now, I can't help but think he was analysing me and figuring out how to hedge his bets. My dad later said that someone of his stature would have to wait for the right opportunity to attack when my guard is down, but if he did, I'd have little chance of escape. Anyways, he eventually said, "Through the door, turn left and take a lift up." I look over and see he's pointing towards an ominous brown door with no signs or anything at the front. He's the employee, so I assume he knows better than me. I open it and see a dark, run-down hallway, completely different from the vibe of the modern McDonald's. Under my breath, I'm like, what the fuck? I walk through the door, and as the door closes behind me, I'm met with an eerie silence. All the hustle and bustle sounds of the McDonald's completely stopped, as if the hallway was soundproofed. But it was basically empty except for some sparse, flickering lights. I continued forward, trying to follow the man's instructions towards the bathroom. There was a bunch of doors that seemed like locked staff rooms, but I didn't explore at all. I turned the left corner as instructed, and there was indeed a lift. The building was creepy, but I was just overreacting. This was probably just a very odd passage to a shopping mall, which isn't too uncommon in Hong Kong. Once I got to the right floor, things would look more normal. I press the lift and step in, and suddenly the worker follows me in. I notice he's holding a black bin bag that's filled with little to nothing. I assume, okay, maybe he needs to line another bin and help me find the toilet. Kill two birds with one stone. I ask him what floor to press, and he presses the second floor. Once the door closes, it's a bit quiet and awkward. I glance at him for a second, and suddenly says, "You're very pretty," in Cantonese. It's very awkward, and I just said a quiet "thank you" in hopes of not agitating him. In my head, I'm starting to wager if I actually need to pee that badly. The lift stops after what feels like an eternity. I was fully expecting a shopping mall when the lift doors open, but that was not the case. The doors opened and it was another dark, quiet, narrow, very run-down hallway of doors. Not a single person was there but us. I couldn't tell what the building was. An odd cross of abandoned apartment building doors and office doors? At this point, we're both still standing in the lift and my entire body is in fight or flight response. The whole situation was making me fear the worst. The man gestures for me to get off and almost wants to continue walking me to the toilet. I quickly made an excuse of, I've bothered you so much already from your work. You can just point at the direction and I'll find it. Promise. He points to the right and tells me to go through there and that's the toilet. I thank him and then go the complete opposite direction he told me. I didn't trust any of this, and I decided to try to stall enough time to make it seem like I went to the toilet before sneaking on the lift back down. The whole place was like a fucking maze. Narrow hallways with more and more doors. I'm pacing along when I get an angry call from my brother asking why I've taken so long and where I am. I explain I don't know where I am. I'm trying to find my way back. I hang up, and I'm getting increasingly more scared as the place is giant. Again, it's still extremely dark with no signs at all, and there is no way a functioning toilet was up here. I'm really panicking now. I'm trying to find my way back to the lift, scared shitless. My initial discomfort of desperately needing to pee turned to desperately wanting to leave. I calmed myself down a bit with breathing exercises and tried to recollect the steps I took. I finally found the lift, jumped inside and furiously spammed the closed door button. The lift takes me back down to the hallway, but by accident I walk forwards instead of turning right. Bloody hell! Before I realised my mistake, I'm met with 4 to 5 doors next to each other. But what was the most strange was the fact the doors were all facing this large wall of glass panels. Through the panels, I was able to see all the people eating in the McDonald's, and they didn't notice I was there at all. I walked back and turned right this time, through the door. I was finally in the McDonald's again, but that glass wall on my end appeared to be a large mirror in the McDonald's. It was a double mirror. I looked around and there was no sight of the employee from earlier. I quickly walked back downstairs and found my dad and brother. My dad asked if I was okay as I looked really pale. I said I'd tell him when we were out. I asked him if he saw the worker again when they were waiting, describing him as a man with a mask on and a lazy eye. My dad shook his head and said he didn't see any employees when he checked upstairs for me earlier. My heart dropped as soon as I heard that. The worker was still up the lift. My dad also said, "Don't tell me you went through that lift. I opened that door and walked through a bit to find you. It was scary. Why were there so many doors and that glass? I thought there was something wrong and got out immediately." Bear in mind, my dad is built as fuck. He actually sent my brother up to go look for me. Not sure why. My brother is pretty skinny and unathletic in comparison. He opened the brown door just to see and loped the fuck out. He described it as looking like the big, dark back rooms. They later told me they had gotten so worried that my father devised a plan to go through every level through the brown door and start kicking down doors while shouting my name. That's how bad of a feeling they got. If he wasn't back down, or back down with me within 15 minutes, my brother was instructed to call the police. My brother apparently argued about the plan, suggesting it would be best if they find all the exits and guard them now, banking on the fact I'd be out at some point because it's unlikely they'll be able to search every room. When I asked what they would have done if I wasn't spotted at an exit, he said, "At least we'll find your remains."
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at DisturbedPodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producer is Noah Fouts. Our audio engineers are Nathan Corson and Will Pritz. Executive producer Bridget Coyne. Until next time, stay safe out there. Hello, listeners. We're committed to making scary good podcasts for you to enjoy. With the lineup expanding to twice a week and new shows and formats coming your way, we want to make sure we're giving you exactly the horror you're listening for. We created a survey to gather feedback about the show and to learn more about you as a listener, to make the best Disturbed that we can. Interested? Go to theshowsurvey.com/disturbed to take the quick anonymous survey and be entered into a drawing for a $100 Amazon gift card. Again, that's theshowsurvey.com/disturbed. Every week, we'll select a different winner for participating. And hey, thanks.